By Black Podcast, episode 74, season 1 finale. 3 things you can do to start brand new in 2019.
Welcome to By Black, the voice of Black business. The only podcast that provides free marketing for growing Black companies, education for budding entrepreneurs, and a reliable place for consumers to find and spend money in quality Black-owned businesses. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you learned something from this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating or review on iTunes. Ready? Let's get to work.
Welcome to another episode of By Black Podcast, the voice of Black business. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and today is episode number 74 of By Black Podcast, and it is going to be kind of off the dome. I do have an outline here, but there's a lot of things that I'm going to want to talk about today. Surprise, everyone, this will be the final episode of the first season of By Black Podcast. Yes, we had a season that went a year and a half long. Yes, the whole reason why I'm calling it a season is because I need to take a break from the podcast to recalibrate some things in my life. And I need to come back to it with more clarity, stronger, a little bit further down the line. And we're going to talk a little bit today about that process, which is why I said a little bit of this is going to be off the dome. But before we have that conversation, I want to talk about a few New Year things. Full transparency, actually, a lot of you probably don't know this. I actually have a recurring spot on a multi-market radio show. Usually about once a month, I get invited on to do about a 10-minute segment on entrepreneurship. And a lot of times we play some clips from By Black Podcast, and then we have a conversation around some of the tips from the show. Well, this last weekend, oh, by the way, so that show is called The Scenario Radio Show. They broadcast out of Nashville, Tennessee from 5 to 7 p.m. Central Time on Saturday nights every single week. And okay, shameless plug, people. The Scenario is legit. If you are, like me, a child of the 80s and a product of 90s hip hop, and now you're in your mid-30s going closer to your 40s, and you still have that 90s hip hop mindset, and yet you're kind of in your grown folks uncle or auntie stage, and you just like having real grown folks conversations or listening to them, I'm telling you, The Scenario is the perfect radio show for you. Every week they have, I think they call it Grown Folks Talk with a Playlist, and that's really what it is. It's just grown folks conversations around real life topics. And the great thing is that they put together a dope playlist of music that is set to a theme associated with the topic of conversation. I mean, it rarely gets any better, and I'm really grateful that they reached out to me to be a part of their show. All right, so shameless plug complete. This last weekend, I was on the Scenario Radio Show, and the topic was about acting brand new things to do in the new year, and specifically, they were talking about getting your house in order, be that getting in a position to where you can purchase a new home or getting your finances in order, things like that. And I came on to talk about getting things in order from an entrepreneurial perspective. Now, I talked to the host, Van, early this month. I mean, it was around January 5th, 6th, or 7th. And he asked me to come on. I said, yep, I'll have no problem being on later on in the month. And then the day of the show came, and I had not prepared anything. In fact, my alarm went off telling me that I was going to be on the show in about 10 minutes. And I said, oh, yeah. And I hadn't put anything together. And so I just reached out to them as they were prepping to do the show, said, hey, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm ready whenever you guys call. And then I quickly and frantically wrote down a very short outline of topics that I could talk about on the show that day. And so when they called, I talked about these topics within that time frame. Y'all know I go run my mouth for an hour and a half years. So 10 minutes is nothing, right? But when we got done having the conversation, I looked at this outline and I said, man, this is actually pretty good stuff for a podcast. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And then the crazy thing is these topics also tie in with the thing that I've been struggling with the show over the last month or two, which is knowing that I really need to step away from it, knowing that I really need to put my focus towards building myself, my business for my family, and putting the focus in and getting that off the ground, because it really is time for me to kind of selfishly put my family first, because I've really been putting the community and other people's businesses and other families first for the last year and a half with this show. And I'm passionate about that. I love doing that, but it's caused me some hardship, a lot of it. And it's time for me to put my house in order, to get everything straight over here so that I can really have the energy and the bandwidth to really do this podcast and really do my mission of taking control of the Black economy. To do that the right way, I've got to have my stuff in order. And so that's a lot of what is going to be going on here over the next several months. All right. So all that, we will come back to that. But I wanted to cover a few things that I covered on the radio show this last weekend. So the topic being things or ways that you as an entrepreneur can kind of act brand new in the new year. In other words, a new year comes along like one just has, and you're feeling like you need to make a change in your business. You're feeling like you need to do something big, or you're looking back at the previous year and you're knowing that you don't want to just continue on the same pattern. So what are the options that are available to you as an entrepreneur in order to kind of act brand new in the new year? All right. So there are three things that I broke out that are options for you, for me, for us as entrepreneurs and business owners going into a new year. So the first option that you have is to start a new project to get your message out. So when we're talking about that, what we're saying is ways to build your audience that you may not already be using, ways to get the message out about the product or the service that you offer in your business that you may not have already been using, and specifically ways for you to build your credibility as an expert in your field going into a new year. So the most typical ways to do this are starting a blog, starting a YouTube channel, or starting a podcast. A lot of people doing those three things, right? And we probably had this conversation before. Which one is right for you? That all depends on how you like to communicate. For people who can sit down and type out 500, 1,000 words like it's nothing, writing a blog is probably going to be your absolute best bet if you want to start getting your message out and building your audience in 2019. Now, here's why. More than a YouTube channel and more than a podcast, a blog is going to get you some of the best search engine optimization juice that you can get to have people who are searching on Google coming to your website. Because a blog is nothing but words. And Google's algorithm basically scans the internet, searching for words, searching for themes, searching for topics, and searching for answers to people's questions. And so as those bots are going out and they're scraping all the content on the internet and all the pages that have all of the information, if you have a blog that has the answers to questions that lots of people are asking, Google's going to find that blog, and Google is going to start sending people to that blog by putting you pretty high in search results for the right keywords. And so a blog is phenomenal for getting more people who have never heard of you before to find you, to start following you, and to start engaging with you, your content, and your business. Now, second to the blog is definitely going to be starting a video channel, starting a YouTube channel, for a few reasons. One, YouTube is owned by who? Google. So if you have videos that are embedded in your blog, if you have a YouTube channel where you are doing the same thing, you're either answering people's questions, solving problems, or you're entertaining people, you are going to get a lot of search engine juice from Google because Google owns YouTube. So if you embed another one of Google's products into your web page, you best believe those algorithms are going to give you more juice. And if you are really good at answering people's questions, both in your blogs and in your videos, you're going to get a lot of exposure because ultimately that's what Google exists to do. Google wants to help people solve problems by feeding them the information that they need. And so if you are creating content that solves people's problems, even if that problem is I'm bored and I want to be entertained, if you're creating content that solves people's problems, Google is going to send people to you, and those people may become subscribers, they may become followers, they may eventually become customers and referrals for more people to your business. And so if you haven't done it yet and you're looking for a way to shake things up in 2019, hey, if you're a writer, start a blog. If you are really good at making short and pithy content and editing things together and making it interesting in a very short period of time, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, make a YouTube channel. And of course, if you are like me and you're ridiculously long-winded, then you may want to start a podcast. Now, the problem with podcasts is that people think that because so many folks are starting podcasts, that it's just a quick and easy way for you to build an audience. It is not. Podcasting is a very slow, very long-term way to build an audience. You're not going to start a podcast today and have 2,000 listeners 6 months from now. It's just not going to happen. It's also really hard for you with a podcast to get that search engine juice that you would get with a blog or with a YouTube channel. Why? Because the Google algorithms aren't able to go into your audio file and figure out what the episode is about. It's not scraping through the audio files. And so if you have a podcast and you put it out there on a website, but you don't have any show notes written for it, you don't have any details about what's talked about inside of that podcast episode, it's impossible for Google to figure out what it's about. So it's impossible for Google to figure out who they need to send to your podcast, to your website, in order for them to get their questions answered or their problems solved. So to do a podcast in such a way that you're going to grow your audience, it is a lot of work because you've got to write detailed show notes that are almost like blog posts. In fact, some of the best podcasts, the ones that work, are the ones that grow the fastest, that don't have like a huge name behind them, are podcasts where the entire episode is either transcribed or where the episode main points are explained and spelled out in detail with links to resources and all of these other things in there. So the more work you put into the backside of your podcast, the easier it is for people to find it in Google, the more likely folks are going to get to it organically, the more likely that it's going to grow. But if you're not going to do all those things with a podcast, you just got to understand that you better have really good audio quality. You better have a really entertaining or inviting podcast cover. And you've got to have a name for that podcast that describes exactly what it is that your target listener is looking for. Otherwise, you're going to get skipped over among the sea of podcasts, and it's going to be hard for it to grow. And another thing you've got to do if you want to grow your podcast is do what I have not done consistently, which is ask people to refer other people to your podcast. way more than asking for reviews. Reviews are nice. Reviews are very cute. In fact, I'm very appreciative of the reviews that you guys have given for this podcast. But ultimately, the podcast grows because you're out there telling somebody else, and this is dope. You need to listen to this, and you're sending them to it. And so you have to consistently be asking your listeners to tell other people to listen to your show. There's other marketing ways to get it out there, but really, word of mouth for podcasts is huge because if I'm going to spend 30 minutes, an hour listening to somebody, I'm usually going to trust a friend of mine who sends me there more than just scanning through pictures and picking a podcast and listening for a few minutes. So be clear on that. All right. So that was number one. If you are in business, running a business, and things are going the way that you want them to go, but you just want to get more exposure, you want to shake things up. Hey, if you're a writer, start a blog. If you are really good at getting your point across and being entertaining in a short period of time, start a YouTube channel. And if you're long-winded like me and you got a lot of advice, or if you like to tell stories or just have really cool, dope conversations with your friends, start a podcast. All right. Now, the second thing that you can do as a business owner or entrepreneur to shake things up in the new year, this is really focused around if you're looking back at your 2018 and you're saying, man, things just they're not going the direction I want them to go. I'm kind of on the right track, but I'm not having the impact that I thought I was going to have or that I wanted to have, and I really need to make a change. And so the second option that you have coming into 2019 is going to be to make a pivot in your business. Now, the key thing about pivot for anybody who is not an athlete or hasn't played, basketball or sports like that, the key thing with a pivot is that you keep one foot planted on the ground and you move the other foot in a different direction so that your body is now facing in a different direction. And the really key part about that is keeping one foot planted on the ground. So when your business pivots, that does not mean that you completely throw everything out of the window and you start over. A pivot simply means that, hey, I'm kind of going in the right direction, but things are telling me I should really be looking left or right a little bit. So I'm going to just kind of sway my business to the left or to the right and then start going in that direction based on what the market is telling me. So let's have a little conversation about what that means based on what the market is telling me. All right. So one thing that might tell you that you need to pivot your business in 2019 is if you find yourself spending a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of your resources trying to convince your potential customers that what you're offering is what they want. All right, I'll say that again. If you spend a lot of your time and your resources trying to convince your potential customers that what you're offering is what they want, that means that you're throwing advertising dollars out left and right to try to attract people to your business. You're posting a whole lot on social media. You're putting out a lot of information. And as people are engaging, they're really not buying. And so you keep hitting them up more and more, and you keep trying different ways to convince them that what you're offering is what they want. And you get a few nibbles, but you're really not getting the volume of people who are coming and screaming and saying, I want that. I want to pay you money. You've got to really work to convince somebody to pay you money for what you're offering. If you're finding that to be the case, you're probably going to need to pivot, because the thing that you think people want or the things that you think people need or that they should want or they should need is not what they want and it's not what they need. And if it is, they're not willing to pay for it. And so it might be time for you to make a change, to pivot left or right. You have got the audience, you're connecting with people, they're listening to you. But if they're not buying, there's a reason. There's something off about what you're offering. And so if you haven't already, you should go back and you should reach out to a bunch of the people who you've been trying to connect with. And you should start asking them, hey, so you've been engaging with me. You've been engaging with my content, but I see that you haven't bought anything. Can you tell me why? What is it that I'm missing you on? What are you really looking for? And start collecting that data and that information so that you can figure out where you need to turn. Another great thing to do is go to people who have bought from you and say, hey, so what was it that made you want to buy this product from me? How happy have you been with it? Is there something that you would prefer to have had? Is there something that you wish that it had? Go back and do a little bit of that retroactive market research to find out where you're gaining people and where you're missing people. And when you find those trends, now you start getting a picture of, okay, this is the direction that I should probably pivot from now going forward in order for me to be able to actually grow my business. All right, so the next thing that tells you that you might need to pivot is that your business is stable, but it's not growing. So you've got customers and they are paying you and they're happy and you're providing a product or a service, but you're finding it hard to bring in new customers. Or as many new customers as you bring in, you have old customers going out and things just really aren't growing. They're very stagnant. That might be another reason for you to try to make a pivot, to do something that is going to raise the excitement that you have around your business. Bring in something new, go in a different direction, try to connect with a new audience. And then the last thing is that if you are profitable, if your business is growing, you have new customers that are coming in all the time, they're happy, they're paying you money, but you notice, and this again goes to that research and data capture, but you notice that your customers or your clients are consistently asking you for the same one or two things that you don't offer. So they're paying you for one thing and they're saying, hey, do you offer X, Y, or Z? And you're like, no, we don't offer that. Oh man, I wish you did. If you hear that over and over again, then that tells you there's something that people want. There's something they're willing to pay for that they are not finding with you and that they haven't found somewhere else. So when you hear that 2, 3, 4 times, now you need to start thinking, hey, can we offer this? Is this a service or is this a product that we can create and that we can offer to our existing customers, that we can offer to new customers that's going to bring us in more money? That's another way that you could look at doing a pivot. All right. So again, new direction that the market is pressing you toward. How do you know the market is pressing you towards a new direction? Well, if you're spending too much time, energy, and money to try to convince people to buy the thing that you already are offering, if you notice that your business is stable, but it's not actually growing, there's not any excitement around your business, it's just kind of there and it's floating along. Or if you do see that your business is growing, but your customers are continually asking you for the same one or two things that you're not offering, that they haven't found anywhere else, but they're definitely willing to pay for. Those are all reasons that you might want to pivot your business coming into 2019. All right. And then the last component of this acting brand new, the last thing that you might have to do, if you found in 2018 that everything that you did took you further and further away from your goal, if you found in 2018 that no matter how hard you tried, no matter who you connected with, nothing started turning out the way that you wanted it to turn out. You thought you were going left, you were going right. You thought you were going north, you find that you're going south. If that was your 2018, then I'm sorry, but you might just have to completely rebrand and launch a whole new business. That might be the thing you have to do in 2019. Now, I know that hurts. I know it hurts, because when you put your time and your energy and your effort and your love into something and you really think that you have it all figured out, but time and again you see that it's just not working out. It's just not going the direction you want. People aren't responding the way you thought that they would. You've got to listen to the people. and not just listen to the words, but you got to listen to their actions, because people will tell you, I love it. It's great. Everything is wonderful. Cool. Pay me money. No, I'm not going to do that. Sorry. We're going silent. So you got to listen to what people do. You got to listen to their actions. And if everyone's actions associated with your business is saying you are not doing what we want you to do, you are not offering something that we are willing to buy, and we never ever will, it is time to rebrand and launch a new business. All right. So here are a few hints that it might be time for you to rebrand and do a new launch. The first one is if you find that you are attracting a completely different demographic than you were originally going for. Now, this one isn't really so bad. You may have launched a product thinking that you were talking to a specific target audience, and then you find that there are a huge group of people who are really excited about your business. They're really excited about what you offer. They're paying you money for your thing, but they are not the people that you originally were trying to connect with. You might need to rebrand and change everything about your marketing so that you're actually intentionally talking to those people. Now, you're obviously not going to change your message because the message is attracting them, but you're going to want to change everything so that you are intentionally speaking to those folks, all right? You're connecting with them on purpose. So here is actually a pretty good rebrand problem. You tried to hit something, you tried to, toss your line out into the water, and you might have tried to catch a bass, but instead you caught a crappie, right? All right, it's still good eating. So now we just need to make sure that we are focused on the crappie, because that's who's biting. All right. Another reason that you might need to rebrand or relaunch your business is that you are attracting people who can't or won't pay for your service or your product. So here again, you've got people's attention. You've got an audience. You've got folks who are engaging with you. They seem to like what it is that you're offering, but when you reach out to them and say, here's how much the thing costs, they kind of go silent. Either you're attracting people who don't have the funds to pay for what they want, or you're attracting people who simply aren't willing to pay for the thing that you are offering. All right. That may be because they expect they should get it for free. It may be because you're offering something that's close to what it is they're looking for, but it's not exactly what they're looking for. It's not the thing that gets them excited, not the thing that gets them to open their wallet. All right. So if you're attracting people who can't or won't pay for your product or your service, then it may be time for you to pull chocks and just completely rebrand the business. Now, I had a conversation while I was on the radio show about, well, do you really need to rebrand, or can you just reposition your product? And my response at the time was, no, you absolutely need to rebrand, right? Because the market already knows your product in association with, this market positioning. And so you need to rebrand. But as I was thinking about it later, there are a lot of companies who have successfully repositioned their brand in the market without having to completely rebrand. So I'm going to modify the answer to that question a little bit. If you don't really have a huge market saturation and there's not a whole lot of people who already know your brand is what it is, then you may be able to just simply keep your brand and reposition, which means you're going to change your message. You're going to change your marketing materials. You're going to change the demographics that you're targeting with your message so that you're talking to a whole different group of people and you're talking to them in a different way. You're helping them to see your product either as a premium product or as a low-cost product or whatever that thing might be that's different, but you're looking to connect with a completely different set of people while keeping the same brand. That's repositioning. You could totally do that. Also, if you happen to just have all the resources in the world required to rebrand or reposition your brand. So let's say that you've got market saturation. Lots of people know your brand. They know it in a particular position, and it's going to take a lot of work to get them to see your brand in a different light. And you've got the resources to support that. Sure, you can reposition, right? You can reposition your brand, but that's going to take, could be millions of dollars in marketing in order to reposition your brand in people's heads. That's a lot of work. And so if you do have a brand that a lot of people are familiar with, but you don't have the resources to reposition, which if you're in a position where you've got people who can't or won't pay, you probably aren't bringing in a lot of money, which means you'll probably just need to go ahead and chuck that brand and completely just start a new brand with a new position. Because if everybody knows you as that thing and you don't want to be that thing anymore, and you don't have enough money to convince them that you're not that thing anymore, then make the thing go away, become a new thing they've never heard of before, and boom, you're all good. All right. And then the last reason that you may need to rebrand and launch brand new is if you find that you just don't have any joy, any passion, or any satisfaction in the service that you're offering to your market. If you find that you have lost your passion and you are not having any fun, you're not getting any joy, you're not getting any satisfaction, even as you're serving your market, it might be time for you to do something else. All right? Just do something else. I know it hurts. I know we have this, what's the word I'm looking for here? These cognitive biases. All right. And one of the major cognitive biases is this sunk cost fallacy. It's a logical fallacy that basically says, I've already put so much effort and energy into this thing. I can't quit now. Right? I've already sunk so much into it. I can't quit now. And that is a fallacy that contributes to a bias that keeps us putting more and more resources into something that we should just let go of. Logic would tell us you need to let go of this, but our emotions tell us that we need to justify the reasons why we continue to hold on to it. Right? So if you find yourself in a position where you're just not enjoying doing the thing anymore, you've lost your passion, and you get no satisfaction even as you're serving your base, it is time to do something else. All right. And I closed out the section on that show by sharing this little quote here. And it's not really a quote. Well, it is because I said it. But I shared this. I said, if you're content being overworked, worn out, and miserable, you might as well just go get a job, because at least then you got benefits. Like if you've got your own business, if you're wanting to grow your own business, you didn't do that. You didn't leave the corporate world or the business world or somebody else's world in order to go and create a job where you are overworked, worn out, just as miserable as you were working for somebody else, but you got no guaranteed paycheck and you have no benefits. So if you're content being that way, just go get a job. If you're not content being that way, you need to make a change. You need to make a change that is going to take you closer to the life that you want to live as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. And that brings us back to our original conversation, why we are coming to the close of season 1 of Buy Black, the Voice of Black Business. So, as you all know, I started this show July 5th of 2017. I intentionally chose that date because that was the 1-year anniversary of the death of Alton Sterling. And of course, the following day, Philando Castile. Those two murders hit me really, really hard. they happened at a time in my life where I had literally just finished my bachelor's degree 2 months before that. I was restless and trying to figure out what I was going to do with this newfound piece of paper that I had spent so much of the government's money getting. And when that happened, when those two things happened, it became very clear to me, whatever I do is going to be to make an impact for the future of the Black community so that fewer Black people have this happen to them in the future. And eventually we can make it go away completely. I knew that I wanted to do something associated with that. And it took me 9 months from that day to come up with the idea for Buy Black Podcast. And once I did, it took me about 2 months to test the idea, connect with business owners to be on the show, figure out just exactly how you're supposed to put out a podcast, and then to start recording and putting shows out. So from that time until now, I have had the opportunity to talk to a lot of business owners, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of you who are out in the audience, and I have really appreciated the emails and the connections, and then you guys connecting with me in real life and on Facebook, and forming a lot of really good friendships through this podcast. But there's one thing that hasn't happened. I haven't been able to see from the audience a movement on supporting the Black-owned businesses that have been on this show. Now, that might be because I'm not asking the right questions, and you guys are out there diligently finding these businesses, connecting with the ones who have been on the show, and spending money in them and helping them grow, sending them referrals, doing all of those community economics things that we've talked about. You could very well be doing those things, but I don't know about it. All I know when I connect with the business owners and I talk to them is, every once in a while, somebody has a story to tell. Somebody has a referral that came from the show. But by and large, they just kind of came on the show and then they went their own way. And we don't really stay as connected as I would like to. And when I do reach out, they don't have any concrete numbers or anything telling me that folks who listen to the show found them, reached out, and spent money. And guys, that really, it bothers me because I am a results person. I don't do anything just to do it. And I'm a very, very introverted person. Now, I love teaching. I love standing in front of groups of people to teach things to them. I've become pretty comfortable behind the mic. I love doing interviews because I'm not talking. Those people are talking and I'm learning stuff, right? But ultimately, I'm a very introverted person. I could go my entire life without talking to anybody outside of a classroom as I teach, and I would be just fine. So for me to get behind the mic and do a podcast every week, I'm doing it for a purpose. I'm doing it because I want to make an impact. I want to change the way people behave. And to this point, I've not done my due diligence in setting up a system that both encourages the behavior that I would like to see and follows up on assisting in the behavior that I would like to see, and actually tracks how much change there is in the behavior that I would like to see. I have not done my due diligence in that. And so what I feel a lot of times is just a lot of silence over here as I continue to put out show after show. And yet I don't see the needle moving on specific metrics. And I don't get the anecdotal feedback that would tell me, oh, this is likely going on. Very much so. It just feels like nothing's happening. Great example I'll give you guys. So Daniel Ibarra has been on the show twice. Daniel owns Vita Shoes Company, and he was the very first episode of the show. And then he came back for one of the episodes in the 60s when he was doing another campaign supporting one of the nonprofit organizations in Dallas. I think the second time around it was the American Cancer Society, and helping them to build the Hope Lodge there in Dallas, Texas, for families of cancer patients. So Daniel came back on the show, and then in that show, he offered so much, y'all. I mean, he offered a discount on the shoes. He also offered to give me a commission kickback on every pair of shoes sold, which I offered to donate my portion of that also to the American Cancer Society. His shoes are not very expensive at all. I own 3 pair. My wife owns 3 pair. We wear them all the time. They are freaking awesome shoes. They're stylish, they're comfortable, they're light, and when you wash them, they get clean without getting messed up. He makes a great product. And a part of his profits go towards helping the less fortunate. And he offers discounts every time he comes on the show. I mean, it is just reason after reason after reason to support this guy. And we did the show, we made all of the offers, and then we tracked. We tracked what happened with sales that month. And with the number of people who listen to this show every week, who listened to that episode, and specifically who listened to a show called Buy Black, the sales were not there. In fact, most of the sales were the sales that came from my household. And that hurt. And I got to be honest, it was embarrassing. And I've been chewing on that for the last several months and saying, it's not you guys' fault. There's more that I could be doing. There's more that I could be doing to connect you with maybe the people that you really are wanting to buy from. There's more I could be doing to try to encourage the folks who come on the show to offer, other incentives for you to work with them. Now, I'm not a big proponent of asking Black businesses to discount their product just to discount them, but that's kind of a thing about coming on the podcast, is that usually the person who comes on, they'll offer a discount just for the audience. And so I could have done more to make that a part of the experience. Could have done more to really stay connected with you guys by doing an email newsletter with new businesses that I've connected with, by doing reviews of products, by just being more of a community like I intended when I first started. I could have done more. And up to this point, I feel because I haven't done all of those things, because I haven't created that community that I really talked about or wanted to build, now it's just a podcast. It's a podcast that people listen to, and it's great information, really smart business owners. I'm sure a lot of people listening grab those entrepreneurial tips and are using them, and I love that. But I want this audience to spend their money on the businesses who come on this show and other Black-owned businesses. Point blank, period. And if that's not happening, me continuing to do the same thing over and over again and getting the same result doesn't make any sense. It's time to pull chocks and go about things a different direction. So that's reason number one, that this is going to be the end of season 1 of Buy Black Podcast. We're going to be coming back probably in about 6 months. And I'll tell you why about 6 months. Because right now, I am in the process of launching my signature program. All right. I've talked to you guys about it, dopebusinessplan.com. I'm in the process of launching that, and all of my attention is going towards this launch. All of my attention is going towards making sure that when I start this business, it gets off the ground in such a way, with such a catapult, that I can retake control of my family's future. Because right now, it's in the hands of corporate America. And just the same way as I want us to take control of our own Black economy so that we're not dependent on the government or anybody else to make sure that we survive, I need to take control of my own household so that I'm not dependent on somebody else's check to make sure that we survive. So I need to put my focus on that. I'm really excited about that. I had 2 really great training events that I offered this week that it were just phenomenal. It gave me life. And everything afterward, I'm on the right path, and I'm really excited about it. But it's going to take me about 6 months to get this where I want and where I need it to be in order for me to be in the driver's seat. All right. In order for us to be in the driver's seat. And in that time, as we move closer to that 6-month period, I'm going to be able to shift my focus towards doing some real planning around season 2 of Buy Black Podcast. Doing real planning around how to not just do a dope podcast, but how to build the structure, how to build the community, how to make sure that we get engaged and get as much support for Black-owned businesses into this show and everything associated with it as possible, so that you folks are connected and you have everything that you need to go out and spend your money in the businesses that need you and that you need. It takes more than just a podcast. I can't just say it. The people can't come on here and just tell you what they do, and we expect that you're going to spend your money. It takes more than that. So I want to give this mission the attention it deserves. I want to give this mission all of the effort that it deserves, because I want it to succeed. And success to me is not 10,000 people listening to the show. Success to me is however many people are listening to this show. When they listen to it, they are going and finding these companies, or they are getting inspired to find companies near them, and they're going out and they are spending their dollars with Black businesses, Black business owners, and then they're telling their friends, and they're getting them to spend their dollars with Black businesses and Black business owners. If there was only one person listening to this show every week, but based on that one person's actions, 100 people were going out and spending more money in Black-owned businesses, I would be happy. So I'm very happy that this show has grown over the last year and a half the way that it has. You guys continue to keep showing up, continue to keep connecting with me on social media, and I love it. But I want to see dollars spent. I want to see community activity. And if I want to see that associated with this project, then I need to create the tools and the construct in the community to make that happen here. So that's what we're going to be doing when we come back for season 2 later on this year. Plan on sometime around July. Heck, July 5th. That's what we're shooting for. But until then, thank you all for being with me through this first 1.5 year long season. Thank you for understanding where I am right now in my path and my journey, and giving me the room and the space to do the things I need to do, both for my family and for this community. And before we go, just the last thing I want to throw out to you all, if you are a part of this community and you are a business owner, you are an entrepreneur, or you know a business owner or entrepreneur who is overwhelmed in their business, who spends way too much time working and not enough time with their family, and who really just doesn't have all the structure in place so that they can enjoy life as a business owner, That's what I'm building Dope Business Plan for. And so if you are among that group, or if you know people in that group, I want you to connect them with me. That's going to be my focus over the next 6 months. And I really want to help as many business owners as we can, because the mission is still the same, y'all. It's one thing to start a business. It's one thing to get out there and start making money. But if you don't have the right structure in place so that your business can grow, whether you're in the office or not, you're not ever going to be able to scale. And if our Black-owned businesses don't scale, then it doesn't matter how many of them get started. They're all going to remain small. And when businesses remain small, when they can't scale up, when they can't increase their revenue, then they're never going to be able to compete. We need scalable Black businesses that can compete in the open market with all of these other companies, compete and win. And that's what Dope Business Plan is all about. What you need to send them to actually is dopebusinessplan.com/CEO. All right, dopebusinessplan.com/CEO. And when they go there, you'll be able to take the business owner assessment that I developed. It's called From Self-Employed to CEO, How Close Are You? And it will give you a very clear picture of exactly where you are in your business ownership journey and the steps that you can take to move closer and closer to becoming a CEO. So that's the spot. That's where you go. dopebusinessplan.com/CEO. All right, guys. Well, that is it for tonight. Thank you for walking with me through this journey. It's a painful show for me. I hope that you all understand where we're at. But when we come back, we're going to come back stronger than ever and ready to make an impact on the world. So I look forward to seeing all of you then. And in the meantime, y'all know where to find me. dopebusinessplan.com/CEO, and you can connect with me directly at GWJonesII on Facebook. I will see you there. Thank you. Good night.